Chief Navigator Felix's brow lowered as his eyes contracted, focusing his annoyance on the scanner in front of him. A chitinous limb exposed itself from the folds of his ceremonial robes, and a single digit unfurled. He rubbed at the dark smudge on the screen. It stubbornly remained. They had patrolled the Elithrak system, named for the commander of their flagship, the Retellus, for 7 days now. They had seen it all, and the disappointment of these meager planets had reached all the way back to the homeworld. Initial dossiers had sent a jolt through their entire species, an inherently stable system with a rich asteroid belt and 3 planets in the right place for all Commonwealth species. It would have been invaluable for the war effort if the 3 planets weren't all nightmarish wastelands. Elithrak 2 was a planet-sized pressure cooker. The probes they had sent down had lasted minutes. I-4 was a dry, airless world bearing the scars of relentless asteroid bombardment, and the 3rd was a hostile combination of both. Positive news was circulating about a few of the system's moons, but Felix wasn't impressed. The Commonwealth needed a hub, a manufacturing epicenter for the system. The current swathe of backwater colonies was simply not enough. "So why are we still here?" asked Ithk from behind, as Felix almost jumped out of his carapace. Etha, the leader of the ship's strike team, was good at sneaking up on people. "Mahasi," Felix said. No more was needed. "Simple enough." Elithrak's briefing had the detail, but that's what it boils down to: search and destroy. "Well, I can't say that tactics failed me," replied Ithk, spreading his mandibles in a grin. "Hey," Ith said suddenly. "What's that on your scanner?" "A mark," Felix said dismissively. "I'll procure some cleaning up." "It's moving." "Commander on the bridge!" shouted Ithk, as he and the other soldiers snapped to attention. Elithrak emerged into the room, and he was just imposing as the Mahasi whispered. His sinewy frame reached 8 feet easily, despite his hunch, and his gaunt face held eyes of fierce intelligence. "What have we got?" he asked as his subordinates scrambled to comply. "A large object over Elithrak 2, Commander, in a very low but stable orbit," said Favelik. "And it's a dead read across the board. We only spotted it against the bright clouds of the planet," said another. "How large?" Elithrak inquired. "Just under 11 kilometers, end to end," which seems ordinary for a small natural satellite to me, Commander. "What my colleague is failing to take into account is the shape, sir," said Favelik. "And what shape it?" "It is, well," the first analyst trailed off. "Ship-shaped." Elithrak nodded slowly, considering the situation. "Notify all ships. The Siphoran is to take point for a clean scan, whilst the Fexus and the Duam plot firing solutions." The bridge erupted in the clacking of keys and mandibles as orders were issued and followed. Elithrak turned to leave, pausing briefly by the door. "Captain Yithk, make your preparations." "Absolutely, sir." 3, 2, 1, firing. Probe fired. Silence loomed over the bridge of the Retellus as glowing rear of the probe flashed briefly into view. It vanished into the void, but the tracking locator remained to give a steady read of distance and speed. The fleet was observing from behind the 3rd planet, spread into a tenuous skirmish formation. Watching it with particular interest was Captain Withk and his strike team from a small monitor in the armory. If the probe was successful, then they could well be the follow-up. 10 kilometers at 5 impact. Ethi had his eyes closed as he imagined the probe coming in like a kinetic round. The flash of raw heat on impact and the immense shudder which would ring through an entire ship. The spray of debris into space and the red-hot hole in the side. Impact confirmed. "Breach?" asked Elithrak urgently. The probe's handler hesitated. "Did we breach?" "Affirmative. We're in. Probe is damaged, but we have a signal." "Display on main." The bridge darkened as a rotating icon appeared cheerfully against the window. "Gravimeter on," said the handler as a messy stream of data occupied the top left corner of the projection. "Thermals on," was the confirmation as the second quarter came online. Some white patches from the impact but otherwise sold gray. No heat. GPR on. Blurry schematics started to appear in slices in the third quarter. Visual on. As the fourth panel came online, Alethrak craned to see. Stretching to his full height of over 9 feet, his subordinates didn't even notice him, so drawn were they to the monitor. In the armory, an auto rifle fell freely to the ground, and nobody even blinked. What are they? How many are there? Are they alive? Endless questions were cast from every corner of Alethrak's fleet, as the same image from the probe was held in every mind. The picture had already been smuggled off of military network and onto the Commonwealth net. It had already been recognized as a hoax, as the apocalypse, and as everything in between by the so-called experts back home. Alethrak star. The same image in his quarters, in endless awe. There were pods, hundreds of thousands of them, in a vast cylindrical chamber, with as many as 8 such chambers mapped out on GPR scan. In the foreground, every detail was visible on a single pod, including, most importantly, a nude gray figure suspended in a stagnant fluid. Alethrak couldn't gauge its size from this perspective, but he already had a team of scientists studying the images. He was fascinated by the mane of thick fur at the top of otherwise hairless creature. It had the musculature of a young Mahazi, but its skin was pale and dotted with black and silver sockets. Alethrak had made up his mind. He left his quarters and strode straight into the armory, garnering a reflexive salute from a surprised Ithk. Soldiers of the Rettellus Strike Force, you will soon be launched through space, through someone's hull and into history. You are tasked with recovering a specimen of the ship, and if the entire species is not dead, you will be the conduit for our ambassadors to establish first contact. You mean, sir, that even if they are alive, we should still secure the specimen? Correct, Captain Wythk. We will have an alien to study, whether dead or alive. 10 minutes to prepare. Breaching. Breach confirmed, came the satisfied call of the lead gunner on board the Rettellus. His ordnance this time was jokingly referred to as Liv Amo, an assault shuttle bearing 2 teams of Commonwealth Special Forces. Approximately 2 kilometers away from the target, a charge in the midsection would detonate, accelerating an exploding nose to make a breach as the rear half followed through with the troops. Captain Ithk, this is Rettellus Control. Do you read? We read you. Deployment successful. We've established a perimeter. Nothing unexpected so far. He's good, said Alethrak, brimming with confidence. Withsee and his 2 teams had deployed into a large room which their GPR schematics showed was just above another large chamber. Air, heat, a gravity were all offline, but their combat suits could handle that. Withsee could hear his troops over open microphones, and nothing else but the rhythmic clunking of his magnetic footsteps reverberating through the suit. Team 1, front and center, he barked as he gestured towards a door. I want this open. With a grunt of confirmation, 2 troops moved forward as others covered the door. One drew a breaching plate and clamped it to the front of his rifle as another scanned the door with a handheld device. Right here, said the one with the scanner, tapping the middle of the door as his colleague raised his weapon and push. The breaching plate against it. Breaching! Came the call as the locking mechanism exploded into the next room. Ithik was already in with a crowbar, and the door was quickly open. They descended a short set of stairs and were confronted with another door. This one, however, seemed to read their intent and opened itself in silence. Control, announced Ithk. Looks like bits of this thing still have power. Just how old is it? The science team is working on that, Captain. Current best guess is a couple thousand years at least. Control, be honest with me here. Do we have any idea who built this? Asked Ithik. Negative, Captain. But given the size of this thing, we're hoping that they're dead or friendly. Dead or friendly, said Withk under his breath. The team relaxed a little as they moved through the next few rooms. The inside of the alien ship was a complete mess, but they didn't see any signs of battle. Eventually, they found a large round opening which they knew would lead into the pod array. They walked through in a wedge formation and emerged in the cylindrical chamber onto a catwalk that spanned the entire length of it. The individual pods were larger than the images had suggested, and Ith walked up to one of them, as if hypnotized. An alien floated in the pod before him, just like the one in the image. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. I was hoping for something more interesting, cracked one of his troops. Ugly fuckers, though, replied another. Withsey seemed satisfied with the specimen in front of him. Control, he called in. Please ask Commander Alethrak if this particular alien would be sufficient. 1 moment, please. The squad's technician stepped forward, casually removing the front panel of the pod's console. He poked around inside with a little light. Shit, he said. This whole damn system is, well, it's alien. You can't hack it? Short answer, no. Long answer. I'd love to get this back to the Retellis and try. Let's see, said the technician as he started experimenting with the keyboard. An interface flickered into life, presenting a menu in the alien language. Just one option, so I'm guessing that's release. Let's find out. With a quiet whir, the console burst into activity, throwing up alien text as beeps and whirs came through. A speaker behind them made a cheerful ding as the large round exit slammed shut. Atmosphere began to rush back into the chamber, thick yet colorless. Less oxygen than would be considered optimal in the Commonwealth, but perfectly breathable. Captain, this is Control. What the hell is going on down there? I think we turned it on. Lights were coming on everywhere and the vibrations of heavy machinery could be felt through the catwalk. An alarm sounded within the alien pod, and the dirty, viscous fluid was drained in seconds. It cracked open, globs of liquid floating through the massive chamber. Quick, before the gravity comes on, yelled Whisk. Control, we have the alien. I think it's alive. We need a pressurized route out of here. No pressure to any of the adjacent rooms, Captain. Wait, the LZ is above you. Go up. Gimme that, shouted Wythe as he snatched an anti-tank weapon from the leader of Team 2. He aimed upwards and fired, blasting a large hole through the ceiling. Mag boots off, let's go! With 2 of them clutching the alien, they jumped in unison, emerging not far from their landing zone. Clambering aboard the shuttle, the team strapped in and sealed the door. Form a damn line. Medics, engineers, scientists, everybody else. In that order, you grubs. The clamor surrounding the shuttle back on board the Retellis was intense as personnel surrounded the returning raiders. I don't know what you did down there, yelled Alethrak as he strode towards Wythe, but it's active and I am hoping that it's not passed off. Commander, said one of the analysts feebly. Not now, replied Alethrak as he turned his attention back to Ithk. Captain, I've got 15,000 crewmen in this fleet here cleaning shit out their robes because you turned something on. You got any idea how loud I had to shout to stop those assholes on the Fexus from putting holes in it? Yes, said Wythkey. Commander, tried the analyst again. Did you get the damn specimen at least? Yeah, we did. A stretcher emerged from the assault shuttle, bearing the unconscious alien. This stunned the crowd into silence. Everyone except one determined analyst. Commander, look at this, the analyst demanded quietly, passing a data pad with the now famous pod image on it. Yeah, the pod's. Welcome to 3 hours ago. Now get. Yes, the pods, replied the analyst patiently. Look. Alethrak did look, and when saw it, it was like slap in the face. This was not the original image. This he probes live feed. The same room, from the same angle, with the same countless pods. Except that they were empty. Within minutes, the alien was situated in the laboratory, with a horde of scientists taking samples. The rest of the crew were scrambling for their battle stations as their potential target, the behemoth alien ship, poured incredible force from its engines and broke the gravity well of the second planet as if it were a paper chain. Incoming broadcast. Text only, shouted the communications officer above the chaos. With a nod from Alethrak, the message was brought up on several screens. It was a short one. They seem to have guessed the structure of our language and have provided suggestions for us regarding translation. Good. That's good, right? Queried Felix. If they wanted to destroy us, then they wouldn't care if we read it or not, right? How long to translate? asked Alethrak. Not long. They've done most of it for us. They must have been monitoring Captain Wythke's communications. The first word reads, "Attention interlopers." Not a good start, said Felix. Power to weapon capacitors, commanded Alethrak. Right. It reads, "Attention interlopers. Earth stands today as a withered husk of what it should be. We were judged and found wanting by forces far beyond us, but there was survival amidst the destruction. There was learning amongst the chaos, and finally, from within anger and hatred and fear came retribution. Earth stands today as a monument to our survival, for there is far less remaining of their homeworld. We do not care that ours is a dead world. It is ours by rights, and we shall hold it. We do not care that we are a doomed species. We shall survive and learn against the malevolence of all others, and of the universe itself. The human remnant marches forward, with not one left behind. Incoming! Alethrak's first reaction was one of relief. Had their main gun fired, then they wouldn't have had any notice. What have we got? His question was answered by a resounding wham as something slammed into the side of the Retellis. The Fexus had opened fire at the first human capacitor surge, and the Doame had now joined it. The two heavy cruisers were moving to shield their flagship as an array of destroyers and corvettes fanned out. These would form a missile shield for the larger vessels with their point defense systems, and in turn they would soon launch missiles of their own. Slug, charge, what the fuck just hit us? Minimal damage, sir, said the chief engineer, apparently surprised. It slowed rapidly just before impact. Wait, started Ithk, still in his combat suit. It's a fucking assault. Surge. Incoming! Warning screamed urgently as a small silent flash came from the human ship. The battle icon of the Fexus winked out. Are we hit? The Fexus! Crewmen swarmed to the view screen to see the front of the Fexus burning. The fireball mushroomed from the front of the ship as the atmosphere inside combusted. The human slug had torn an opening along the vessel's length. Survivors would remain in outer armories and hangars, but the ship was lost. Alethrak had been stunned into silence. We need to fall back, yelled Velich. There's another problem, countered Ethk. Intruders in the main hangar. Stop them, ordered Alethrak to Ethk, his control over this situation draining with every second. With a muffled ding, the door opened. YTC moved through. With him was the 12-man strike team he had taken aboard the human ship. Another 200 soldiers had armed up and would soon move in through the main door. The corner of the hangar was twisted and charred, with the open nose of a human assault pod poking through. It was far larger than the covert shuttles used by the Commonwealth, and so too were its occupants. 4 humans had already disgorged from the pod and taken position in the hangar. They looked very different to the specimen Yithke had retrieved. Gone was the flesh and hair, and instead stood a gray mountain of armor and equipment. Although silent, the towering figures had their attention focused on just one of their number. Officer Withk raised his weapon, took aim, and fired. He watched in dismay as the round plinked against the human's head and failed to penetrate. It turned. Get down, yelled Wythke as one of the humans stepped forwards, holding a multi-barreled weapon from the hip. It spun to life as Wythke hit the deck, and then it loosed a long burst of pure hell towards the Commonwealth squad. Exploding rounds hammered into the Team 2 leader as his mutilated body collapsed. Another burst forced Ithk and his men to duck and run, returning only a few shots as they retreated to the door. The 4 humans advanced, pouring suppressive fire into Wythke's position. 2 humans flanked rapidly, standing between Wythke's squad and the main hangar doors as the other 2 continued to suppress. 2 more of the Commonwealth soldiers were shot at close range, and Yithk heard them expire over the open microphones. Just in time, his reinforcements arrived, as the main hangar doors whirred open to reveal 2 companies of ground troops. The first 2 humans, now themselves outflanked, simply turned and fired. Commander, we've lost contact with Captain Wythke. Have his reinforcements arrived? They arrived at the hangar, and we seem to have lost contact with them too. We have 4 alien signatures moving towards the science wing. 4? Where are the rest of them? We don't know. Lock it down. Lock everything down. Have the Betka send us more ground troops. Use a fucking assault shuttle if we have to. We need to stop those intruders. The next 10 minutes passed in near silence, save for the steady pings of computers tracking the exchange of fire in space. The Dweem had fallen back after taking a glancing hit, and soon after the human vessel had stopped firing its main weapon. It was now plugging casually at the smaller vessels with its secondary guns, and had yet to score a serious hit. Sir, they've breached the science wing and are converging on the alien. Is the science team alive? Yes, apparently they ran, and the humans neither fired nor pursued. His enemy honored surrender, or at least recognized civilians. The silver lining on a particularly gruesome cloud, thought Alithrak. Do we have working cameras in the science wing? Displaying on main. 4 figures, armored and invincible, stood around the naked alien. One put down a huge case it had been carrying on its back as 2 others used some sort of scanner on the alien. It stirred. From inside the case came another armored suit with the boarding party helping the 5th human get dressed. The leader of the human assault team then turned to look straight at the ceiling camera. For a second, Alithrak doubted that the viewing was one way. Incoming broadcast. From inside our ship, it's audio. It was spoken crudely in Commonwealth, but they recognized it instantly as it filled the bridge. Not one left behind.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, I liked the story, and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.